Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Disability Equestrian. Tell me, what do you think of when I ask you about prehistoric man? Like, I'd be the first one to put my hand up to say, prehistoric man or a woman, was unintelligent unintelligent brute who didn't have time to be caring. It was survival of the fittest. They were nomads, and they had a very hard life. So when I think about disability, people with disabilities and how they would have lived, or if they lived in prehistoric times, I assume from my rudimentary history of prehistoric man, would have said, no wait, if you have a disability back in prehistoric Stone Age times and hunter-gathering society, that's it, you're doomed. You're not gonna make it past birth, and society would get naturally cast you away because they have to think of their tribe and survival of the fittest. That's what I would assume, even though I'm a person with a disability. Well, you'd be forgiven if you think the same. But, I can make that up, that was not the case. But I found interesting. It turns out that people in the Stone Age, even though they had a very rough time and moved around a lot to follow the animals, they looked after and cared for the people with disabilities. You're like, wow, they surely wouldn't have time, but they did. And here are some examples of it. The first one would be a skeleton called Shanidar 1, aka Nandi. He was born in Iraq, in Shanidar, in a cave called Shanidar. Around about 65,000 years ago, between 65 and 35,000 years ago. Now, back then your life expectancy was 33 years old. That was your life expectancy. But this guy, not only was he old, he lived to the right old age of about 40 to 50 years old, which would have been about 80 years today, And not only that, he had a disability. He had, due to a violent blow to his left temple, he suffered from partial or full blindness. He also suffered from brain damage, which would have meant that he had a withered arm, and eventually that arm got amputated. And he also had blockage in his ear, so it would have meant that he was partially, if not fully deaf. Yet, these incidents and disability occurred early on in life, and there are even signs of healing. So he acquired these disabilities early in life and lived on to have a long life, and he wouldn't be able to take care of himself fully, so someone had to. And that means his family, his tribe looked after him. And so, yeah, that's one sign, one example of altruistic Stone Age man. Sorry. The next one would have been SH14. This boy was found in Spain and lived around about 500,000 years ago. And he lived to the good old age of 5 years. For that time it was given the fact that he had a brain deformity, that's what I mean. He lived a long time for the fact that he had a brain deformity. And yet, he wasn't chucked aside by society. He was actually cared for by his family members. Given the fact that he lived a long time for the condition he had. And then moving on, we had another skeleton called Lorna Tilley, found in Italy in a cave. He lived about 10,000 years ago. And this guy, he lived with dwarfism. And he lived to the age of around about 17 or 20 years old. So, he had normal intelligence, but he had limited mobility. And the fact that he lived in a very rugged terrain area, a mountainous area, in a hunter-gathering society, which meant they moved around. His limited mobility due to his dwarfism would have hindered him a lot. Yet, the family didn't cast him aside. They looked after him, and he lived a long life. And given the fact they were buried in a particular cave, not only meant that he was tolerated, it also suggests that he was revered, for some reason, he was admired. Then moving on, the next example, fourth example would be the name given to the skeleton would have been Burial 233, found in northwest Georgia in a famous site called King's Site. And this person lived to be 25 years old and was buried with full military honors for that time. They buried with spears and whatever, they buried them, no epic and Stone Age burials, but only it said that this burial was generally reserved for men. Yet, Burial 233 was actually a woman, and I'm not suggesting that disability, and not only that, this woman had a hip deformity from birth, resulting from an accident from birth. So she was born in a very male-dominant period, and she had a hip disability, which would have limited her movement in a hunter-gathering nomad society. Yet she was revered enough to be able to be buried with full military honors. So, as you can see, the people with disabilities were lived throughout the lifespan of mankind, and when always abused or when always disregarded, like we think of and have been in the last 200 years. Now, three other examples would have been the Windover boy. This boy was found by 7,500 lived by 7,500 years ago in Florida, and lived to the age of 15 and had spina bifida and was paralyzed from the waist down from birth. Yet lived in a hunter-gathering society. So you can only imagine what difficulty that the family had to deal with in order to make sure that boy lived to the age of 15, and what to take care of. Like, it's so sad that the family took care of the kid. Then you have another boy in Vietnam, found in Vietnam, lived by 4,000 years ago, he was age 10 years old, and he had a disability called Keppel failure syndrome. And again, he was looked after by his family, and he lived to the age of 10 years old. So it means he wasn't discarded by the pack, even though they lived in prehistorical, end of prehistorical period. And lastly, we have the lady who lived to the age of 18, and she lived again around about 4,000 years ago, and in the Arabian Peninsula. And it actually suspected that she had polio, which would have limited her mobility severely. And again, she would have lived in a hunter-gathering society. So having mobility issues would have been a drastic drawback, you would think, in a nomad hunter-gathering society. Yet, the expert said she didn't die of her polio, but rather died of tooth decay due to the fact that she had a load of cavities. And they suspect that her family, in order to keep her happy and care for her and love her, they fed her a load of dates that would rot at her teeth. So it just goes to show that people in prehistoric times actually did care for their families and didn't cast them away just because they had a disability. And I can give them the fact that in the last 200-300 years, mankind did a shut opposite. Like there have been many occasions where mankind in the last 200-300 years, even less, have discarded people with disabilities. Yet, people who you could argue had a reasonable reason or excuse to discard people due to survival of the fittest mentality, and that they lived in, without the support we have now, and lived in an extremely dangerous society, and they didn't have the protection that we have now from modern day appliances or living in nice warm houses and which are safe and secure from wild animals. They still took care of their loved ones, regardless if they had a disability or not. So I think if we can learn anything from the past, we can learn that we should look after our vulnerable, and we should invest in the vulnerable society. Because they will surprise us and make something of themselves. So yeah, no, when I was researching this topic, I find it very interesting that are the great examples of how people with disabilities were treated humanely in prehistoric times. When you take obviously immediate opposite, but obviously it wasn't. Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to keep my videos concise, so that way, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know what you think. Thanks, bye. I hope you learned something from it. Thank you.